welcome to Two Small Biz Guys. I'm Zen Benefiel and
Ray Silverstein.
And together we're your advisorologists.
Oh, that's right. That big word again.
Yeah, it's a big word. And we're going to be kind of breaking ranks a little bit here this evening. We've got Dr. Zaheer Shah and Kayla Shelly from PrimaCare Inc. They've been in business. PrimaCare has been in business over 20 years, started out on the East Coast. Dr. Shah actually is a certified internist who went to Brown University, one of the Ivy League schools.
And he's also a great advisorologist for you have an issue.
And we'll find, bless you. And we'll find out more about that in a little bit. He provides outstanding internal medicine and primary care to residents of Greater Tempe and Phoenix currently. Their address actually is 2163 East Baseline, Suite 101 in Tempe. PrimaCareAZ.com is their website. That's PrimaCareAZ.com. So visit them as we go along here. And so welcome to the show, Dr. Shah and Kayla.
Thank you for having us. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great to have you. Now, Kayla, you're more on the it looks like you're specializing more in women's care with the primary care facilities, right?
Yep, I've worked in the adult internal primary care, so that's chronic and acute disease management, but I also do specialize in women's health, doing annual mammograms, pap smears, and well-woman exams.
And welcome to Arizona, by the way. I noticed you just moved here from Rhode Island not too long ago, and welcome to sunny Arizona.
Thank you. I left just in time.
Yes, you did.
And Dr. Shah is also welcome to sunny Arizona.
I'm delighted to be here.
And after hearing the weather in the East Coast the last couple of weeks, I don't doubt that in the least.
Right. Now, in your primary care situation, you do a lot of annual exams, DOT physicals, work-related industries. You deal with testosterone management, alternative medicine, school physicals, sick visits, those kinds of things. But you wanted to talk about more of what the CDC is doing in regards to the recommendations about upper respiratory infections and infections in general.
That is the topic that we were hoping to cover this evening. Because
how was that? We just launched right into it.
I think it's of great interest. I'm hopeful it'll be of great interest to the folks that are listening this evening. Because it's going to have an impact on what happens to you if you were to go into an urgent care or go to your primary care office, whether that's a pediatric office, a family practice office, or an office like ours, which is based on the internal medicine model. Now, since World War II, we as a society, and frankly, we as a world, have become quite dependent on antibiotics to help us combat various bacterial infections. And when penicillin first came out, it was used amongst the soldiers that were the victims of some of the ravages of World War II, and it was a miracle drug. And it could take care of infections and turn folks that we thought were, essentially going to die and save their lives.
And so it was seen as such a miracle drug that we even started putting it into the animals that we eat in preparation for those kinds of treatments too, right? I know that really doesn't have to do with
that's a great point, Zen. However, the use of antibiotics in the agricultural industry is a very serious matter. And I think that originally the idea of adding antibiotics to the feed that we feed our livestock, like our cattle and our pigs and our chicken, basically most of our meat supply, was that the rancher or farmer was wanting to make sure that he or she could get them from basically their conception all the way to the slaughterhouse alive and well.
Healthy.
And initially I think that was the intention. And then an inadvertent or incidental discovery was made along the way, which is that if you add antibiotics to the feed that we feed our livestock, that they grow bigger and they grow faster. So in other words, in medicine or in science, we would call that an anabolic effect. And antibiotics have an anabolic effect. And as a result, you're able to get another 50 pounds on a steer, another 20 pounds on a pig, maybe another pound on a chicken. And at the end of the day, that can mean for huge profits and increase the margins that a farmer may have to work with. And so over time, I think what happened is that antibiotics kind of became commonplace and became added to anything that we're feeding our industrial livestock industries.
Now, does that really have an effect on our consumption and the effects that it has, or does it have an effect on our body?
It's had a huge effect. And I can try to summarize some of that for you. So when antibiotics are consumed by livestock, and then they're taken to the slaughterhouse and turned into various meat products, and we bring them home out of our grocery stores and we cook them, unfortunately, we're not able to render the antibiotics that is in that meat product completely inert. So
it's like any nutrient
at
in
a
the meat,
diminished level,
it's going to be there.
Exactly. At a diminished level, it's still there, and it's still there in an active form. And unfortunately, what that's done is it's had a huge impact on our gut flora. That's the bacteria that live inside of our colons. Modern medicine refers to that
fauna,
now.
just flora.
Yes, just flora. They refer to that as the microbiome. And anyone who's been looking at the literature that's coming out of medicine and out of science will see that there's a lot of talk about microbiome. And it's because we're beginning to connect the dots. And we're beginning to realize that alterations in our gut flora, in other words, what the organisms are that actually constitute the ecosystem in our gut, can have a huge impact on our health.
Hence the engagement of probiotics. And
Exactly.
Things like that. Okay.
Now, one of the very concerning things that's coming out of this literature is that altered gut flora may have a huge reason, maybe a huge factor in why the obesity epidemic is so severe. Now, I'll be the first to grant as a practicing physician, and Kayla would agree with me as a practicing PA, that obesity is multifactorial. It could be genetic in part. It can have a lot to do with diet. Has a lot to do with exercise. Right. But one of the things that's very interesting is that alterations in our gut flora may be creating a ecosystem within our bodies that actually impacts our metabolic rate, our physiology. So that if there are alterations in the organisms that actually grow in our gut, it may have an impact on how quickly we metabolize food.
Right, and if you don't metabolize it fast enough, it's going to be stored somewhere, usually as lipids, fats, that is going to show up in some place on your body.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'll say amen to that. And that's one of the fascinating things that's coming out of this area of medicine. One of my predictions is that over the next 5 to 10 years, microbiome research is going to just explode. And it's going to deliver to us truths that we had heretofore never known about this relationship between the gut flora that we inherit. Incidentally, this is an interesting fact. So all of us get our gut flora from our moms. Our dads have absolutely nothing to do with what we are born with in terms of gut flora. And gut flora, you can track it matrilineally, mother to mother and generationally, all the way back, so that we can actually do DNA analysis on what we call mitochondrial DNA. That's the DNA found within an organelle, within a bacterium called a mitochondria. And from that, we can actually trace genetics. It's a very interesting area of medicine.
Well, that's part of what the genome, the Human Genome Project does, is they track the mitochondria, right? Or the mitochondrial DNA back through to find the origins. Am I correct on that, or am I a little...
I think you may be slightly off. The Human Genome Project really looked at what the DNA constitution is of the 23 chromosomes that human beings have.
Right.
It didn't delve into gut flora, from my understanding of it, or mitochondrial DNA. But the Human Genome Project, which we could talk about perhaps on another day, but that's also, it's bringing a wealth of information that is going to impact the way that healthcare is delivered. And in particular, how we wed individuals with certain medications.
When we come back, I'm just curious about how the organic activities that are in food and meats and so forth will relate to this. We're going to have to go break in about a minute. But I'm just kind of curious on that aspect, because you mentioned that it comes from the gut flora is changed from the meat that we eat, whether it be chicken, pig, or whatever. And therefore, if it's organic, will that really have the factor?
All right, and we've also got the silver tsunami we're going to be talking about here with all us boomers that are hitting the age. And we'll be right back with you. We're going to continue the conversation and introduce some more about the CDC regulations. We'll be right back with you. What is your dream? Do you want to achieve it? Do you know how? What if you did? Zen Benefiel is the Chief Possibilities Coagulator with Be the Dream, Transformational Life Coaching and Professional Services. He'll help you put your dream to paper and process, removing the liabilities, limitations, and excuses in your challenge to change. Changing your outlook and perspectives opens your experience to opportunity and success. Visit BeTheDream.com and make an appointment with Zen. You'll be amazed with the results.
As a business owner, do you ever feel alone? Hi, I'm Ray Silverstein, founder of Pro Presidents Organization. I know business owners want to call their own shots, make appropriate income, and control their destiny. At Pro, our passion is to help you achieve your goals. A Pro Peer Advisory Board meeting is just the thing. It takes away that feeling of being alone by giving you support, insight, and experience. It's a confidential monthly meeting of non-competitive business owners facilitated by me. I have walked in your shoes. I have owned and sold several businesses. I will be your mentor and tormentor to move you forward. When you have issues or opportunities that keep you awake at night, where do you get your help? Pro boards give support and non-biased feedback from your peers. To sample a free Pro Peer Advisory Board meeting, email ray@propres.com. That's ray@propres.com. ray@propres.com. There's no charge and no commitment to attend.
Offering insight, practical advice, and the opportunity for coaching and consulting from their years of real-world experience and understanding. Two Small Biz Guys hit the airwaves with wit and wisdom, exploring small business with a couple of characters in the community, or caricatures as the case may be. Ray and Zen, that is, Mondays at 8 p.m. These guys are passionate about helping entrepreneurs and small business owners explore opportunities, meet challenges, and transform concepts to reality. Two Small Biz Guys, Mondays at 8 p.m. Are you a small business owner looking for education and information and don't have time for school? Is there an area of your business you'd like to know more about but aren't sure where to go or who to ask? Practical Biz U is an online repository of small business courses now available to you on the web. There are single class options, bundles for specific areas, and monthly memberships for ongoing learning opportunities. Go to practicalbizu.com and sign up today. The digital world is vast. Is it working for you? Would you like some qualified help? Zen Benefiel is a wonder with social media who leads focused and organized workshops on multiple platforms like Facebook, Google+, and LinkedIn. He leads by example, not theory, and teaches you how to live large and lively on the web. From blogs to SEO, his web presence speaks for itself. Take advantage of his expertise. Visit BeTheDream.com and click on Web Wizardry. Hire him while you can. And welcome back to Two Small Biz Guys with our guest, Dr. Zaheer Shah and PA Kayla Shelly. And we're going to be talking a little bit more about the CDC now. First of all, that's the Center for Disease Control. And they have some new recommendations out regarding infections. And specifically, we're going to talk about upper respiratory infections and what those recommendations are doing in the treatment on several levels, from ICU to regular hospital down to primary care physicians. Okay? So we're going to launch into that. So the recommendations basically say what, Dr. Shah?
Well, before I get into what the CDC recommendations are,
Sure.
I can tell you that as two practicing primary care providers, Kayla and I both, for many years now, have been concerned about some of the consequences of indiscriminate antibiotic use.
What have you noticed, Kayla, in your treatment that throws up a red flag that something's not right here?
Well, I think that we see 1 in 5 emergency room visits are due to adverse drug reactions from antibiotic use. So the highest incidence is with pediatric patients. So young kids with antibiotic allergies are hospitalized 20% of the time for ER admits. And also with the changes to the GI flora, we are now treating with antifungals such as Nystatin for long courses of treatment to regulate that GI flora and put the body back to where it originally began.
And that's one of the things that I think distinguishes our office from a lot of other internal medicine primary care offices is that we have been recognizing yeast overgrowth syndrome for a long time and treating it.
Now, we would commonly know that as Candida, right?
Candida is the most common of the yeasts that are found. So people ask, well, what is yeast and why is it a concern? Well, first of all, yeast and
is there a
various
difference
fungi.
between genders and how they affect?
No, I don't think so necessarily. It just so happens that women have more mucosal lining, particularly in their genitalia, that just kind of makes them a little more vulnerable to yeast.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea here is that indiscriminate use of antibiotics kills off a significant portion of the normal healthy flora, bacterial flora. And it's sort of like, imagine if you would, if we went down into the Amazon and went to the rainforest and we began to decimate the trees that were populating this rainforest.
You mean like currently is happening?
Like kind of perhaps is happening. And sometimes we're surprised by what grows in its stead.
Right.
Once you disturb or alter an ecosystem, sometimes the unexpected begins to grow. That's precisely what happens in the gut with respect to Candida or yeast, is that they are immune to conventional antibiotics. So as we're consuming meats that are tainted with antibiotic, and on top of that, we're taking indiscriminately antibiotics that have been prescribed to us by healthcare providers, what it does is it creates an unlevel playing field within our gut that promotes the growth of yeast.
Now, do you find that the prescription or the prescribing of such is kind of the easy road where or is it pushed by big pharma, or is it something that comes down to the local level where it's easier for the physician just to prescribe the
Well, it's a complex question because a lot of this has to do with
It really is.
It has to do with consumer expectation. It has to do with big pharma interests. It also has to do with the didactic programs that the healthcare provider has matriculated through, because there are cultural ways that we handle certain diseases. And depending on where you trained, some people are quicker to pull the trigger on
like
an antibiotic.
any organization or university, there's a culture
exactly
that comes through.
So I think what we want to emphasize here is that our practice recognizes that yeast overgrowth syndrome is a real phenomenon and that it can have real implications in the well-being of our patients. And we have a protocol that we've been using for 15 years involving an antifungal agent called Nystatin along with probiotics. Now, probiotics.
So you brought that from the East Coast out here.
Well, I think I have to say this about Arizona. I think Arizona is ahead of the curve when it comes to integrative healthcare. Yeah, I think that
we've got
Arizona's
one of the best
absolutely
naturopathy universities here in the country.
That's correct. And naturopaths here have a significant power under their license to practice medicine. So, and I welcome that because, the umbrella or the canopy of healing is a huge one. Allopathic medicine, what Kayla and I do, is just one piece of the symphony that sits underneath that canopy.
But you pull in, you do more of an integrated approach. You pull in other things into that allopathic practice.
We absolutely do.
You may not be completely holistic, but you're definitely hedging that direction.
And we take great pride in that. We are I'm a board certified internist. She's a board certified PA. We practice classical allopathic medicine. If you have concerns about diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, we are an office that you need to come see. If you have acute injuries, lower back pain, headache, things of that sort, the kinds of things that bring Americans into a doctor's office, we certainly are able to treat that in a classical allopathic fashion. But at the same time, we recognize that there are certain disease states that kind of end up on the borders of our allopathic understanding. And Kayla
we already have issues with our borders here.
Yes. Well, and Kayla and I have spent, I think, a fair amount of time developing skill sets that will allow us to address some of those issues. For example, one of the things that Kayla employs in her practice, I know this because I trained her to do so, is that we use something called the Myers cocktail, which is a combination of intravenous vitamins that we use to help folks that may have a dampened immune system.
So is that also called chelation?
No.
No, that's different. Okay.
Yeah, chelation is basically the use of agents that attach themselves to heavy metals that may be poisoning the body.
Okay.
The classic
So
one, given
thing.
what's going on in Flint, Michigan, would be lead. in order to detoxify.
I'm pulling the curtain back to my ignorance.
And the only heavy metal I know is music.
Right.
We don't have a treatment for that yet.
Oh, you don't?
Well, good.
In fact, oftentimes we use that as treatment.
That's actually the music that I play on that we use as our intro for the show. So
Is that heavy metal?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
It could be.
Okay. Well, go ahead.
So yeast overgrowth syndrome and the use of protocols to combat that is something that we do in our internal medicine practice that I know sometimes raises eyebrows because people are surprised that we're able to do that. We're aware of it, but we are. In the same vein, the usage of IV vitamin therapies as a way to help bolster someone's immune system, help somebody with chronic fatigue. It's something that we've done with great success. And I want to take all of this now and kind of segue into what has the CDC done recently that has changed the tone of our approach to antibiotics. Well, they have said some fairly startling things, which we're going to get into, but I want to hearken back to this idea that now for the last 20 years, I think there has been a drum beating in the United States, which is that we are over-prescribing antibiotics. And Zen,
I like that musical reference.
You were, I think, very apt in noting that it is a complex problem. Why are we doing this?
Right.
Some of it has to do with, well, what does the patient expect?
As much as we know, there's a heck of a lot that we don't in technology and the study, whether it's brain, body, mind, body, spirit, those kinds of things. It's opening up to a whole new area of research and study that is getting to be very scientific because of the technology that we have to do it with.
Yeah. Well, I will say this. Kayla and I have talked about this at length. I think one of the problems that many healthcare providers have is that they have difficulty communicating with their patients. And poor communication leads to quick fixes.
Right.
Because if I can't help you understand the difference between a virus and a bacteria, or I can't help you understand what the significance of developing resistant strains of bacteria could mean to your health or your family's health, then you're just going to say, I'm going to just say, well, here's your antibiotic.
Right.
See
well,
ya.
the best practice in anything is asking the right questions in order to elicit the answers and to be able to then dig deeper to drill down into a problem to find a solution.
Yes.
But don't the patients really want a quick fix?
Well, unfortunately, we do live in an era of
McDonald's.
drive-through. Not even McDonald's.
Drive-through.
Drive-through.
Yeah.
And that's a part of what I think Kayla and I combat on a daily basis. And we do so, though, through good communications and rapport building. These are people that become a part of our lives. Our patients mean the world to us.
Are we going to see drive-through primary care facilities soon?
I certainly hope not.
I hope not.
I hope not. I think that would be a real deterioration
It sure would.
of the provider-patient relationship, which I think is built
But in a way,
on,
that's kind of what's been happening with the patients coming in with self-diagnosis and saying, hey, here's what I think I've got, here's what I want, and the doctor going, okay.
Yeah.
That's also the aspect of the internet with people do a lot of research after they see the doctor or before, and they do a lot of self-diagnosis.
Well, the democratization of information through the advent of the internet has certainly changed the landscape of how healthcare is delivered. It makes it a little bit more challenging, but I think those of us that are confident and competent in what we do, we welcome that challenge.
And we're going to have a little challenge here with some commercial breaks, and I hope you're listening intently because we'll be right back, and we're going to talk more about the bacteria and antibiotics and their effect on you. Hi, I'm Zen Benefiel with Be the Dream Transformational Life Coaching and Professional Services at BeTheDream.com. Our mission? To provide leading-edge transformational personal and business development services. Our services include life coaching, enterprise coaching, partnering facilitations, and possibilities coagulating. We've been in business since 1988. In times of massive change, you need someone who can help you adjust and transform. I can meet that challenge with you, offering a stellar skill set from serving individuals and companies for over 20 years. I invite you to peruse BeTheDream.com and put me to the test. Fill out the coaching assessment survey and give me a call. The first call is free, and you can find out if I'm what you are looking for in a coach, consultant, or service provider. Call 480-633-7179. Let your dreams mold future realities. BeTheDream.com.
As a business owner, do you ever feel alone? Hi, I'm Ray Silverstein, founder of Pro Presidents Organization. I know business owners want to call their own shots, make appropriate income, and control their destiny. At Pro, our passion is to help you achieve your goals. A Pro Peer Advisory Board meeting is just the thing. It takes away that feeling of being alone by giving you support, insight, and experience. It's a confidential monthly meeting of non-competitive business owners facilitated by me. I have walked in your shoes. I have owned and sold several businesses. I will be your mentor and tormentor to move you forward. When you have issues or opportunities that keep you awake at night, where do you get your help? Pro boards give support and non-biased feedback from your peers. To sample a free Pro Peer Advisory Board meeting, email ray@propres.com. That's ray@propres.com. ray@propres.com. There's no charge and no commitment to attend.
Welcome back to Two Small Biz Guys with
Ray
and Zen, and we're talking with Dr. Shah and Kayla Shelly about their primary care business, and specifically about the...
One second. Where is that located?
1001. It is located at 2163 East Baseline, Suite 101 in Tempe, and their web
Do they have a website?
Their web... That's a great question. Their website is PrimaCareAZ.com. That's PrimaCareAZ.com. PrimaCareAZ.com. And we know you'll want to visit there and find out more about their business. But right now we're going to get back to the antibiotics and the CDC. Dr. Shah, take it away.
Well, we've been kind of building up to
Yes, we have.
what the CDC has to say, and I want
The
to...
crescendo.
It is indeed a crescendo, but before we get to that crescendo, I want to just revive again what Kayla has already told us in our program today, that the CDC's analysis is that 50% of antibiotics prescribed to patients in the clinical setting are inappropriate. Let that sink in for a moment. Our CDC, the Center for Disease Control, regards 50% of the antibiotics that are prescribed in the outpatient clinical setting to be inappropriate. And
That's huge.
That's huge. And they're deeply concerned in particular about resistance developing in children in the pediatric population.
Well, like Kayla mentioned earlier, most of your pediatric patients are there because of problems with antibiotics and their reactions to them.
Yeah.
No.
And unfortunately,
Or
one
a
out
lot
of
of
every
them are,
5
anyway.
ER visits now in the United States are because of an adverse drug reaction from antibiotic use. So this is a very significant problem.
Well, we give 2 or 3 different drugs, you're bound to have some contraindications.
Is
Well,
that also driven if the mother or the father had excess but has excess these drugs and it passes through birth, or is it just given to them as a young child?
I think that it's not necessarily genetic in that sense. I think that children get sick more often than adults do, especially in daycare settings. So they're getting 5 to 7 upper respiratory infections a year as opposed to adults that get 2 to 3. So they are being prescribed antibiotics, specifically amoxicillin, more frequently, causing them to be more resistant as they age and grow older. And a lot of prescribers are prescribing broad-spectrum antibiotics as opposed to narrow-spectrum antibiotics. So what you can get in treatment with a penicillin versus a Levaquin, you can get the same treatment outcome with less of a effect on the rest of your bacterial flora.
And that's an excellent point, is that it's not just the overuse of antibiotics, but in particular it's the overuse of broad-spectrum antibiotics that have consequences not only on the targeted organism. Let's say, for example, you have a strep infection, but you're giving an antibiotic that also kills E. coli, that also kills a variety of the normal gut flora, then the consequences of that is that
You're stripping the body of what it needs.
What I like to think of this sometimes is that, let's say you're out hunting, and you're out hunting for an elk, and instead of using a gun that shoots one bullet, that you take target on that elk and take down the elk, you instead take a machine gun and shoot it randomly in every direction. And chances are, if you're close enough to the elk, you did kill the elk, No doubt about that.
But what else did you
But
hit?
what else did you hit? Because you're taking a machine gun and you're shooting it in every direction possible at a rapid clip. There are going to be collateral consequences to that unfortunately can impact your health. A classic example of that is the development of C. diff, Clostridia difficile colitis. Maybe you've heard of it.
No.
C. diff colitis is a potentially life-threatening condition, which is
What's
directly...
the word that we might know it as that's more of a layman's term?
Well...
Or is there one?
There probably isn't. Toxic enterocolitis is what you end up getting as a result of an infection with C. diff, Clostridia difficile. But this is a very pathogenic organism that really poses no threat to human beings except in the setting of pre-existing broad-spectrum antibiotic use.
Do you also get tongue-tied trying to pronounce those?
I get paid to pronounce them properly. Took a long time.
Sure.
It's I remember in medical school, my urology professor, he said to me, Zaheer, what you're really engaging in is a foreign language course. It's going to take you 4 years to learn a foreign language.
Yeah, because it's all Latin-based,
and
right?
once you're fluent in it, you'll be a doctor. And so, to your point, Ray, a lot of this is about learning a new language, and it's part of what we do as healthcare providers, is hopefully be able to meaningfully translate that for our patients so that they understand in layman terms what the consequences are of C. diff colitis. But so C. diff colitis is the direct consequence of the usage of broad-spectrum antibiotics. So one of the things that we're trying to deal with is the reality that we are now treating very serious, potentially life-threatening illnesses as a result of our use of broad-spectrum antibiotics.
So is there a responsibility for the patient to ask the physician about whether these are broad-spectrum or narrow-spectrum antibiotics?
Absolutely, absolutely. We, as practitioners, Kayla and I, we're committed to the idea of empowering our patients. We do not want to treat patients that are not engaged in the collaborative healing process. And we want to empower them, educate them, so that they are informed consumers of the healthcare services that we provide. Now, that segues perfectly into what is the CDC saying in response to all of this? Well, the CDC is saying in a very dramatic fashion now that antibiotics really should be used in very, very narrow, limited clinical settings. Some of them that I'm going to highlight is that just for routine upper respiratory tract infections in the outpatient setting, in a normal, fully immune functioning patient, they're recommending no antibiotics. Unless you can show strep positivity for streptococcal infection, and there are now assays, they're sort of like a throat swab that you can do that can test for whether or not you have infection with beta hemolytic strep. And if you have strep, then you're going to get an antibiotic. If you've had a sinus infection for greater than or equal to 10 days, you're going to get an antibiotic, because in that setting, the risks
really
are outweighed by the
touch
benefit.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then other more limited settings, for example, like if you've been diagnosed with Bordetella pertussis, which is whooping cough. If you have that, that's a serious
See, now
infection.
that one I recognize.
I'm glad you did the translation for me.
Yeah.
So, so in certain settings like that, antibiotics are warranted. But the CDC is really beginning to elucidate for us what are the narrow clinical scenarios in which antibiotics are appropriate. Now, this is a huge seismic wave in the culture of antibiotics in this country.
Especially with the silver tsunami.
Yeah. And Zen, you pointed this out earlier. You've got pharmaceutical industry companies that are invested in the usage of antibiotics.
Profit centers.
And so it's going to take time. These are not recommendations that are going to be implemented overnight. And will Kayla and I still be prescribing antibiotics at times?
Probably.
At times, opposed to the to the CDC recommendations? Highly likely that we will, because again, we have our own cultural biases about how to treat infections. I'd like to think that I can spot a bacterial infection more often than not.
History and your diagnosis, your ability to.
And so tonight's conversation is by no means a proclamation on our part that we are anti-antibiotic. We certainly, I think.
Well, I haven't heard that yet.
We're using it
limited by the CDC
Exactly.
recommendations.
But I think having that conversation with patients, letting them know what the most respected infectious disease body in our government has to say about the usage of antibiotics in the outpatient clinical setting, I think is an important, it's part of our duty. Our patients, if we're going to treat them with the respect that they deserve and help them become empowered and informed, it's important that they are a part of the educational process, and that part of what we do as healthcare providers, and I know that Kayla's in 100% agreement with me on this, is that we spend a bulk of our time just educating our patients, not just about infectious disease, but about high blood pressure or about high cholesterol or about diabetes or the metabolic syndrome, and what any of those words or those disease states may have as an impact on the life of our patient. You know, education is empowering.
Absolutely is. And education, when you take it in and actually put it to use, is even more empowering and often life-saving, because you're able to approach life with a little more knowledge of how your body should feel, the recognized signs and symptoms and things like that, so that you know something's not right here. I need to go see somebody that can tell me.
But you
Right?
also, but you mentioned that you were involved with the patient empowerment and learning. But since the CDC has stated this, what is the impact within the medical community? Are doctors willing to really change their habit, change their past experience with this type of information, or do you have to be on the upper curve to know about it?
No, Ray, I think it's going to have an impact across the swath of healthcare. You have to remember that healthcare is a profession in which the training process is arduous and lengthy. I have likened it at times with it being a paramilitary experience. And if you think about the language of healthcare, you'll see kind of where I came up with that. You know, when we started out after medical school.
By the time you practice, you've got, close to 10 years into learning how.
That's correct. And, you know, you're called an intern when you're in your first year, then you're a junior resident, then you're a senior resident, then you're a chief resident. You write orders. If you look at this language is very paramilitary.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about control. And that's because you're not dealing with a broken vacuum cleaner here. You're dealing with one of the most precious possessions that we have as humanity, which is our human body. And so there's a great responsibility. Absolutely. There's a great responsibility that comes with that. So are these recommendations going to be codified and enacted into practice immediately? Probably not. But you know what? Medical schools will start to change their recommendations. Residency programs will change what they recommend for providers. And so you're going to see over time a cultural shift in the way that we use antibiotics here in the United States.
Well, that's a great segue for a cultural shift. We're going to go back to commercials here for just a few moments, and we'll be back with you with Two Small Biz Guys. Thanks for listening.
What is your dream? Do you want to achieve it? Do you know how? What if you did? Zen Benefield is the Chief Possibilities Coagulator with Be the Dream, Transformational Life Coaching and Professional Services. He'll help you put your dream to paper and process, removing the liabilities, limitations, and excuses in your challenge to change. Changing your outlook and perspectives opens your experience to opportunity and success. Visit BeTheDream.com and make an appointment with Zen. You'll be amazed with the results.
As a business owner, do you ever feel alone? Hi, I'm Ray Silverstein, founder of Pro Presidents Organization. I know business owners want to call their own shots, make appropriate income, and control their destiny. At Pro, our passion is to help you achieve your goals. A Pro Peer Advisory Board meeting is just the thing. It takes away that feeling of being alone by giving you support, insight, and experience. It's a confidential monthly meeting of non-competitive business owners facilitated by me. I have walked in your shoes. I've owned and sold several businesses. I will be your mentor and tormentor to move you forward. When you have issues or opportunities that keep you awake at night, where do you get your help? Pro boards give support and non-biased feedback from your peers. To sample a free Pro Peer Advisory Board meeting, email ray@propres.com. That's ray@propres.com. ray@propres.com. There's no charge and no commitment to attend.
offering insight, practical advice, and the opportunity for coaching and consulting from their years of real-world experience and understanding. Two Small Biz Guys hit the airwaves with wit and wisdom, exploring small business with a couple of characters in the community, or caricatures as the case may be. Ray and Zen, that is, Mondays at 8 p.m. These guys are passionate about helping entrepreneurs and small business owners explore opportunities, meet challenges, and transform concepts to reality. Two Small Biz Guys, Mondays at 8 p.m. Are you a small business owner looking for education and information and don't have time for school? Is there an area of your business you'd like to know more about but aren't sure where to go or who to ask? Practical Biz U is an online repository of small business courses now available to you on the web. There are single class options, bundles for specific areas, and monthly memberships for ongoing learning opportunities. Go to practicalbizu.com and sign up today. The digital world is vast. Is it working for you? Would you like some qualified help? Zen Benefiel is a wonder with social media who leads focused and organized workshops on multiple platforms like Facebook, Google+, and LinkedIn. He leads by example, not theory, and teaches you how to live large and lively on the web. From blogs to SEO, his web presence speaks for itself. Take advantage of his expertise. Visit BeTheDream.com and click on Web Wizardry. Hire him while you can.
And welcome back to Two Small Biz Guys, and we're living large here in the studio with Dr. Shah and Kayla, and we're going to be talking more about...
I'm glad you used the word living, because Dr. Shah and Kayla are here to help us keep living.
They are life-affirming, and I think that's also called anthropic, right?
Oh. Back to...
See, I know some words.
I can tell that. Could you spell it?
Yes, I could, but it'd take too much time right now. So, antibiotics, organic foods, organic meats, and the hormone or the antibiotic treated meats. What are the differences in that, and what kind of effects do they have on our bodies?
Well, the two concerns that many consumers in this country, and I think many healthcare providers have about our industrial meat supply, is that its growth has been augmented by the usage of both hormones and antibiotics. As I mentioned
earlier,
now
on the shelf you see all of these new labels that have come out just in recent years of hormone-free, antibiotic-free, all of these. Well, there's got to be something to that.
Sure,
right?
And I think it's reflective of a more informed consumer base, where consumers are beginning to understand that our industrial meat industry has made it routine in order to get animals to the slaughterhouse healthier, with respect to just being alive is a better argument I would make.
Sure. But
also that they be bigger, have more meat on them, be more marbled with fat.
And we wonder why the American public is, 65% obese?
Well, there is certainly an obesity epidemic, and the kind of meat that we consume for a variety of reasons may have an impact on that. One of them being that some of the hormones that are found in some of the meats that we consume may also contribute to obesity.
Well, it kind of makes sense that if it's in the food that you eat, it's going to have a similar, it may be diminished effect on the body, but it's still going to have an effect.
Absolutely. And so the idea of organic meat or free-range meat is a movement in which
it ain't so free. It's usually a lot more expensive.
It's pretty expensive. And you know what? I think rightfully so. I think we have become
there's more care.
I think to a certain degree we've become convinced that we can have a burger for 99 cents.
Right.
And there's a consequence
we can
to
go
that.
to the drive-thru, or we can go to Walmart.
There's a consequence to marginalizing the cost of food to something so negligible that there are people out there, unfortunately, that are convinced that they're eating food when they go to a fast food restaurant and pay $1 or $1.50 for a burger, and you're going to get a certain product for that.
Right.
And I'm delighted to see.
And you can let it set for 2 or 3 months, and it'll still look the same.
It'll still look the same. May not taste the same, but it won't. It'll probably still look the same.
Right.
But I'm delighted
like
at this development that there is an increasing awareness in our country that our meat should be meat that's allowed to roam free, that should be fed foods that are more consistent with what it naturally would have consumed in the wild, and is free of antibiotics and hormones. And I think those of us that are fortunate enough to be able to afford that kind of meat, I've always in my office, when I've had these conversations in exam rooms with my patients, have always said if you can afford it, you're probably better off eating the free-range organic meat.
So I have a question though. Our parents or grandparents basically ate those kind of meat, and the life expectancy wasn't as long. So if you look at that and say when people with preservations or whatever,
there's another preservative. I call them perversitives.
Well,
but
maybe
there's
preservatives
a preservative problem.
Maybe that's why you live longer. But the premise is there a correlation between this, or is that just a faulty assumption?
Well, I think that you have to look at life expectancy through two separate lenses. One, life expectancy, people are living longer now because our infant mortality rates are lower. Unless, of course, you live in urban America, where in certain places infant mortality is still a significant problem. But when you average out life expectancy, if fewer of us are dying as infants, it bumps up the upper limit. Yes. So part of this is artificial, that we're living longer. Well, we're not really living that much longer, but we're, as a population, living longer because fewer of us are dying during our infant stage. So infant mortality had a lot to do usually with dehydration and our inability to treat dehydration, usually from infectious diseases. And we've made such headway with pediatric care that our infant mortality rates...
And the early use of antibiotics.
And the early, well, yeah. So...
in the right setting.
I think,
right.
I think that's one huge factor. But the second is it really about longevity or is it about the quality of life?
Well, it's really the quality of life.
Right. And I think that as more of us get older, now I'm at the tail end of the baby boomer population. I'm 52 years old. And I can tell you as I'm aging that my concern is not just for my sheer longevity, but it's that I be allowed to live life on my own terms, which means that I want to have retain use of my faculties, both mental and physical, and I want to have the kind of physicality and mobility that allows me to actually enjoy the time that I have on this earth. And I think that most of our patients kind of, when they're asked to do that analysis, side on the same side, which is that it isn't just about longevity, it's about the quality of life. And the problem that we have now, which our parents and their parents did not have, is that, again, this is a topic perhaps that's too broad to encompass in one conversation, but one of the things that I will say,
but we're going to jam it into a couple of minutes.
If you look at BMIs, body mass indexes of those generations, and compare them to the average BMIs that we have in this current generation or the one after ours, you're seeing a dramatic increase in obesity. And with obesity, you are seeing dramatic increases in diabetes, in joint diseases, in the wearing out of big joints like hips and knees. And so...
Now, does this have to do with the types of vocations people have and the shift from standing and manufacturing and those kinds of things to sedentary jobs with technology? Do you think that's got something to do with it?
Well, interestingly enough, I think it begins much earlier. You know, I recall, I'm from the Midwest, originally from Indiana.
Oh, me too.
I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana.
Yeah, I was born there. Raised in Alexandria, just north of there.
Naptown.
I graduated from Carmel High School.
Oh, okay. My gosh. Okay.
And, I don't recall, I can't remember even a single obese kid in my school, in elementary school.
Because you ate corn, that's why.
And if you were to stand outside of a middle school today and count the number of kids that come running out of that school that are obese, you may be saying positive every second, third, or fourth child.
Mm-hmm.
This is a huge problem when our children are becoming obese. And then studies show that if you become obese as a child, the likelihood of you remaining obese into adulthood goes up dramatically. So again,
sure.
This is
we have one
multifactorial problem.
Went through high school, went into the Marines, and came back ripped, and nobody even recognized him.
That's a success story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, comparing ourselves to the generations that preceded us, I think is really becoming a conversation of apples to oranges. And the interesting thing is we talk about antibiotics like they've been a part of our lives forever. But they've only been around since World War II, with the advent of penicillin being our archetypal antibiotic.
It was
And then
a
the
wonder
sulfa
drug.
drugs.
It was a wonder drug at that time.
It was.
For all things.
Hey, now.
Okay, but the aspect is that what you're really saying is
We were
that,
talking about chocolate earlier.
That's right, dark chocolate. But you're saying that people should be far more enlightened as to antibiotics, be aware, question their physicians as to whether these are broad antibiotics when they get prescriptions. You're talking about this whole aspect of changes of lifestyle completely.
Being a smarter consumer.
Yeah, being a smart. And, one of the things that Kayla and I pride ourselves on as primary care providers is that we want to form a relationship with our patients where there is a trusting dynamic that exists between us, and where we're able over time, not perhaps just with the first visit, but with the second and third visit, educate our patients to where they become truly informed, educated consumers of healthcare.
Thank you very much. This has been a really wonderful conversation, very enlightening, and you guys will be back with us next week. We're going to be further engaging in these conversations and informing our consuming public. And again, if you want to visit these guys, they're at 2163 East Baseline in Tempe. Their website's primacareaz.com. And we thank you for listening to Two Small Biz Guys.
As a business owner, do you ever feel alone? I'm Ray Silverstein, founder of Pro Presidents Organization. A Pro Peer Advisory Board meeting takes away that feeling of being alone by giving you support, insight, and experience. You get this from your peers, other business owners who have resolved the issues that keep you awake at night. A Pro Peer Advisory Board is a confidential meeting of non-competitive business owners facilitated by me. I have owned and sold several businesses. I have walked in your shoes. I will be your mentor and tormentor, moving you ahead to achieve your goals. To a sample of free Pro Presidents meeting, email Ray at ProPres, that's R-A-Y at PROPRES.com. A Pro Peer Advisory Board meeting takes away that feeling of being alone by giving you support, insight, and experience. Email Ray at ProPres, that's R-A-Y at PROPRES.com. There is no charge or no commitment to attend.
You're listening to Independent Talk, 1100 KFNX, Cave Creek, Phoenix, a division of Premier Radio Stations.